What's going on, Dub Nation? New week means new Warriors news and rumors to get to today. Could this be the last Lauri Markkanen trade update that we have, really, the history of this channel? Because tomorrow, August 6th, Tuesday, is a key date in this Lauri Markkanen trade saga. He becomes extension eligible, and today we're bringing the latest news and updates around this whole scenario. But before we do, if and when the Warriors make a trade, we have you covered. If the Warriors trade for Lauri Markkanen tomorrow, I'd bet you money that we go live here on the channel and just have a party about the new Warriors 7-foot sharpshooter. So subscribe to the channel for the latest Warriors news and updates. Today's goal on the channel, let's try to get 50 subs. If we get 50 subs, I was just on the phone with Danny Ainge earlier. He said he would trade us Lauri Markkanen right now. So go on ahead, go down and hit that red subscribe button and never miss a beat on your Golden State Warriors. So the reports are, and we've covered this on the channel before, that Lauri Markkanen is unlikely to sign a new deal on Tuesday. Now that makes sense, right? It gives Lauri Markkanen a little bit of control over his future, about what's to come, when he can sign an extension, how many years, if it's going to be in Utah long term, or if he's going to hit unrestricted free agency in 2025, where he'd be a very big fish. Tim Kawakami of The Athletic kind of gave us the details and how everything fits in with Golden State as far as a Lauri Markkanen trade goes. He said, according to The Athletic's Tony Jones, it's unlikely that Markkanen will sign the new deal by Tuesday, which makes sense. The 27-year-old Markkanen knows he's going to get major money either now or next summer. By not signing this week, Markkanen essentially gains a bit of control over his future. Now, if I'm Lauri Markkanen, this makes a lot of sense, right? Like Kawakami said, I would want control if I was Lauri Markkanen in this scenario, because, if you sign the extension tomorrow, August 6th, that leaves one day open for you to be traded at the 2025 NBA trade deadline. So, from now, August 6th, up until whatever it is, second week of February, Lauri Markkanen's name is going to be hovering around trade rumors for the entirety of next season. And that's a bit distracting for a guy who carries a big load for a pretty weak Utah roster. He's got a lot to do out there. And to hear his name constantly in trade rumors, will Utah trade him? Won't they trade him? New Lauri Markkanen team in the mix now, interested in a trade with Utah. Like, that wouldn't be something that I would want hanging over my head for the entirety of a season. So Lauri Markkanen likely will not be signing an extension tomorrow. But that leaves like 3 scenarios as to what could actually go down with Lauri Markkanen in the near future. So the first scenario, like we said, it's unlikely. Utah extends Lauri Markkanen Tuesday. That leaves the one day open for him to be traded in February. But if not, obviously he would be in Utah long term and would really not have any chance at being a member of the Golden State Warriors until at least next summer. But at that point, we're talking about Steph potentially wanting out after a potentially disappointing Warriors season in 24-25. That's just not a risk I'm willing to take if I'm Golden State. Number 2, Lauri signs a new deal later. So a time after August 6th. It could be, August 7th. It could be September, when they report for training camp. It could be in the middle of the season, I believe. So this just leaves Lauri Markkanen with a good bit of time to mull over his future and what he wants to do with the Utah Jazz and eventually come to terms on a deal. And that would push it past the trade deadline. Lauri Markkanen wouldn't be a Golden State Warrior for the entirety of next season, and that would be guaranteed. Now, the third possibility here is that Utah and Lauri don't come to terms on any deal at all. Tim Kawakami kind of reported that there was a possibility that if they did not come to terms on a contract agreement by August 6th, that Danny Ainge could potentially pull his contract offer to Lauri Markkanen, and that would leave Lauri Markkanen headed for unrestricted free agency in 2025 without a new deal. Now, this scenario is plausible because it gives Golden State the opportunity to make a deal, to keep chugging along that trade rumor mill and eventually try to make a deal for Lauri Markkanen up until the February trade deadline. So this gives the Warriors the most flexibility for a deal, and it also lowers the leverage that Utah and Danny Ainge have in any potential deal because Lauri Markkanen, as you know, is on an expiring 1-year, $18 million contract. So the Jazz are naturally going to get less for him in any deal that they make after August 6th. So the time is now for a trade for Lauri Markkanen if you're Danny Ainge and the Utah Jazz. And Tim Kawakami later reports that Lauri Markkanen's camp is not opposed to him landing with the Warriors. And, I mean, I'm not sure why they would be because, you have one of the greatest shooters of all time. You have a top 10 player in the NBA to pair him with in Stephen Curry, and Lauri Markkanen becomes the easy slide-in number 2 offensive option for this Golden State Warriors team. And I'm not opposed to Lauri Markkanen being a member of the Warriors either. Look at what this guy has been able to do since coming over to Utah over the past 2 seasons. His career has completely blossomed. He's been taking 8 3-pointers a game and hitting him at a 40% clip, and he's been putting in 23 to 25 points a night for 2 straight seasons. Also grabbing 8 rebounds a night, which is something the Warriors struggle with. So I'm all in on bringing Lauri Markkanen to Golden State. And if you want to talk about the perfect complement next to Steph Curry, talk about a guy who's shooting 42% on catch and shoot threes, 43% from the corner, 40% from above the break. 50% of his shot diet is from beyond the arc, and he's shooting 63% true shooting. That stacks up next to Steph Curry's best numbers of his career. So I'm not opposed to Lauri Markkanen on the Warriors whatsoever. I've been campaigning for Lauri Markkanen to be traded for the Warriors for the better part of 2 months. The time is now to get a job done. But there is one major hiccup, or 2 major hiccups, but really more so one that we're going to detail later in the show. That's kind of halting this trade. That's been halting this trade for a couple weeks now. But before we do, I want to hear from you guys. Do you even want Lauri Markkanen on the Warriors? Are you like me? Do you want to see this roster be elevated and their ceiling be raised by Lauri Markkanen entering the fold and becoming that second scoring option next to Steph? If you think so, type yes. Type Y down in the comments for yes. If not, type N for no. I want to hear what Dub Nation has to think about this. Now, before we get into what's halting a Lauri Markkanen trade, I got to get you guys dripped out with the latest Stephen Curry Team USA Olympic merch. Chatsports.com/CurryUSA is where you can find it, and it could be the only time in human history that you could get Steph Curry Olympic merch. Hasn't played in the Olympics before, probably won't play in the Olympics again. This is your one time to get dripped out in some Steph Curry Team USA merch. Thinking of getting myself one for the show? You can too at chatsports.com/CurryUSA to get yours today. That one more time, that's chatsports.com/CurryUSA. I'll put that in the comments and description of today's video to make it easy for you guys. Go get yourself some Steph Curry Olympic merch right now. Now, the major hiccup, we've talked about it at length. And it's Brandon Podziemski holding up this trade between the Golden State Warriors and the Utah Jazz. The reports have come out just in this past day that Golden State is still unwilling to include Brandon Podziemski in any deal for Lauri Markkanen this offseason. And it's unfortunate that this is holding up any possible deal between Golden State and Utah, right? But it is a good problem for Golden State to have that they see a player in Brandon Podziemski that they hold to a standard high enough to not make a deal for Lauri Markkanen. Here's what Mark Stein had to say about the latest on Golden State's trade offers and Brandon Podziemski trade rumors. The Warriors, as of Sunday, continue to be regarded as the league's most ardent Markkanen suitor, but at the same time still unwilling to surrender Brandon Podziemski in a trade package for the 7-foot Finn. Golden State to date has pursued Markkanen without including Podziemski or Jonathan Kuminga in trade packages laden with future draft compensation. Obviously, no team to this point has met Danny Ainge's asking price, which we know has been incredibly steep. Golden State's offer up to this point has been centered around Moses Moody and a drubbing of every single draft pick basically in the first round, in the second round. Doesn't matter if there's a draft pick out there. The Warriors are sending it to Utah along with Moses Moody in exchange for Lauri Markkanen, but Danny Ainge hasn't budged on that deal. He's asked for Jonathan Kuminga, Brandon Podziemski, Moses Moody, Trayce Jackson-Davis, any combo of those 4 in a deal, and the Warriors have been stalwarts in the fact that they've said no, we're not including Jonathan Kuminga, we're not including Brandon Podziemski in any deal for Lauri Markkanen. But this could, end up holding or preventing altogether a trade for Lauri. So it's kind of a weird space that Golden State's in. Do you want to go and lean on the young talent that you have now, or do you want to go land a big fish in Lauri Markkanen? Here's what Kawakami had to say later on about the Warriors and their perspective on making a deal here. He said, "You can imagine what Lacob and Mike Dunleavy Jr. are thinking. The Warriors can sacrifice a huge chunk of their future draft allotment if they end up with Markkanen, Kuminga, and Podziemski as the group that will lead this team into the post-Curry years. If they put either one of those guys into the offer, in parentheses, and I'm guessing Utah would much rather have Podziemski because of payroll concerns, then giving up all those picks becomes a lot riskier." So here's the problem with that, Tim. There is zero chance in my mind, zero chance that Utah ends up accepting a deal that doesn't include one of Jonathan Kuminga or Brandon Podziemski. And that's just the sad reality of it. Unfortunately, you can't fleece a fleecer. Danny Ainge has been known to be a stiff negotiator when it comes to trades. He's known to fleece a lot of teams when it comes to trades, and I'm sure Golden State is a little wary of that. Plus, with the two players that they have in Jonathan Kuminga and Brandon Podziemski, I understand the hesitance to want to trade one of these guys. Brandon Podziemski's coming off a rookie year where he played a ton of minutes, had a huge responsibility for Steve Kerr, and put up pretty solid numbers. Good efficiencies as well. Jonathan Kuminga really took a leap last year after he and Steve Kerr talked about his role, expanded it, and then you see his three-point percentage being 32.1. Well, that extended to 36%, which is around league average for the final 44 games of the season. So you're seeing a guy, an uber athlete that can defend on the wing, multiple positions, and he's that kind of primed spot you want on your NBA roster. These kinds of guys, these 6'7", big wings who can defend, who can play multiple spots. They're a dime a dozen, and Jonathan Kuminga is one of them. But at the same time, it seems like Utah wants Brandon Podziemski a lot more in a potential deal for Lauri Markkanen. And I understand why you get a more cost-controlled player for the next couple of seasons. Jonathan Kuminga is a guy you're going to have to pay next offseason when he's in restricted free agency. So I understand why they want Brandon Podziemski. Plus, if they do make a deal, they'd likely be in the target running for a Cooper Flagg draft lottery spot in 2025. And Brandon Podziemski's already said he likes playing with Cooper Flagg, and likewise the other way around. So I want to hear from you guys quick. Before we dive into more about why they should give up, why they shouldn't give up Podziemski, and why they should just make this Lauri Markkanen deal, would you include Brandon Podziemski in a trade for Lauri Markkanen? If you would, type T for trade. If you'd rather keep Podziemski and see what you got with a young guard out of Santa Clara, type K for keep down in the comments section right now. So here's why both teams want Brandon Podziemski, right? Like, he's 21 years old, a ton of untapped potential. You saw the numbers he put up last year, but if you really go past the box score and look at what he did on the floor, he's very crafty. He did the dirty work. If you see later down the line in the list, he goes down and grabs offensive rebounds. He's always diving on the floor for loose balls. He's a pesky defender in the sense that he took a ton of charges near the top of the NBA last season. And he's just overall a guy you want on your basketball team. He's got comfort and polish with and without the ball. He can run off screens. He can initiate offense. He can slow things down for a Golden State roster that likes to move and likes to play fast. He's a seamless fit in any offense that they run. He can either be the two guard next to Steph Curry running off ball, or he can be that second unit facilitator that that unit really lacks right now with a ball handler back there. And he's got, like I said, 3 more years of cheap team control. If you look at Brandon Podziemski's contract right here, he's not making more than $5.6 million over the next 3 seasons. And the next 2 of them, he's only making 3. He's not even making $4 million. This is one of the best overall value contracts in the entire NBA. And that's no exaggeration with what Brandon Podziemski was able to do last year, plus what you think he's going to be able to do for the next 3 seasons and beyond. This is one of the best, this is straight up one of the best values at any contract in the entire NBA. However, I'm not of the camp that thinks Brandon Podziemski can be a top 3 player on a championship roster for the next 3 seasons. And if you think about Steph Curry's age, the guy's going to be 40 in 3 to 4 seasons. So if you're maximizing Steph Curry's final years on this roster, you make a deal for Lauri Markkanen. You're maximizing Steph Curry's last couple years in this roster. Can Brandon Podziemski even be the best player on that team to win a championship? I'm not so sure. So I would end up dealing him if it was necessary. If you had to press a button where you either never make a Lauri Markkanen trade or you have to give up Brandon Podziemski, I'm hitting the red button to give up Brandon Podziemski. I'm sorry if that makes a lot of Warriors fans mad, but Lauri Markkanen works so well in this team that you cannot ignore the trade if it's a possibility to be made. He's the best floor spacer that there is for Steph. At 7 feet tall, guy can have the ball in his hands. He can run off the ball as well. He's a unbelievable floor spacer for Steph. A pick and pop between him and Lauri would be unbelievable. He's a great fit in the Golden State front court. He can play next to a Jonathan Kuminga. He can play next to a Draymond Green. He can even play next to a Trayce Jackson-Davis I'd like to see lineups of. So there's a ton of combinations you could throw out there to have dynamic front courts with Lauri Markkanen at the helm. Plus, at age 27, when the Warriors wanted to make a deal for Paul George, they were going to give him a 4-year max contract at whatever age he is, 34 years old. So at 27 and with Markkanen, doesn't have the same injury history that Paul George has. And his age can extend in the post-Curry years. Like Kawakami said, when you're running a three of Lauri Markkanen, Jonathan Kuminga, and Brandon Podziemski, you hope that once Curry's time is up, Brandon Podziemski and Jonathan Kuminga are those two stars that you need with Lauri Markkanen to be able to compete in the Western Conference at that point. So his age can extend past Curry and can maximize Curry's final years right now. And if you look at the free agent pool for next year, he's the best one available. You're not finding somebody in 2025 NBA free agency if you're Golden State that's better than Lauri Markkanen and that fits in your lineup better than Lauri Markkanen. So I think you have to make a trade if it's possible. If Danny Ainge says, I'm willing to trade Lauri Markkanen to you, if you give up Brandon Podziemski and and a bunch of picks, then I'm okay with doing it. Maybe include Moses Moody, take one of the picks out, take one or two of the picks out, and get the deal done. But my overall prediction on this matter is Lauri Markkanen doesn't sign his extension on Tuesday. That's very unlikely to what we've heard to this point. Then the trade smoke remains. I don't think Lauri Markkanen signs an extension on August 7th. I don't think he does it on August 8th. And I also think Danny Ainge is hesitant to give Lauri Markkanen a big-time contract in the couple days that follow this deadline as well. The trade smoke will remain until Lauri Markkanen signs that extension, or Utah completely takes the offer off the table and Lauri Markkanen heads into 2025 NBA free agency next season. But we'll have to wait and see what Golden State wants to do about that if the offer's taken off the table and they're still able to trade for him up until the start of the season and up until February once the season begins. But if they do, any report that comes out about Lauri Markkanen, you're going to find out about it right here at Warriors Today by Chat Sports. YouTube.com/WarriorsTV. You're going to want to be subscribed. You're not going to want to miss a thing. So stick with us here. Go Dubs.